Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Outside in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, friends. In today's video, the movie we are going to talk about is called Outside. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it. All the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to give you all the information on which OTT platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we'll talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, C-Shine budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film storyline, star-cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you, friends, to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. Outside is a 2024 Philippine post-apocalyptic drama horror film written and directed by Carlo Ledesma. It stars Sid Lucero, Beauty Gonzalez, Marco Masa, and Aiden Patdu. The film tells the story of a family trying to outrun a zombie outbreak by returning to the father's childhood farmhouse. Plot: the Abel family, composed of Francis, his wife Iris, and their sons Joshua and Lucas, flee a zombie outbreak in the city. Arriving at Francis' parents' mansion on a sugarcane plantation, Francis finds his father and a servant having committed suicide after being infected and his mother reanimated as a zombie. After killing his mother, Francis and his family settle in the house. It is later revealed that Francis is traumatized at being locked up in the basement as a child by his father. At the same time, his marriage to Iris is in trouble after he discovers that Iris has been unfaithful to him and that his elder brother Diego is Joshua's biological father. Days later, Iris convinces Francis to find another sanctuary, but they are forced to turn back and abandon their van at a zombie-infested checkpoint. Francis leaves his family at the mansion and goes back to retrieve the van, but instead ends up with fuel for the mansion's generator. Joshua learns of a safe zone over the radio and tries to convince Francis to investigate, only for the latter to taunt him and instead teach him how to fire a gun. However, the gunshots attract a horde of zombies which besiege the family inside the house until Diego arrives and lures them away with his vehicle. The next day, the brothers try to reconcile, but Francis, who harbors resentment against Diego due to him being favored by their parents and his affair with Iris, rejects his offer to guide them to the safe zone and drives him away at gunpoint. Diego leaves Francis a map leading to the safe zone should he change his mind. After Francis overhears Iris deducing that the zombies are weakening and dying off over time, he stages being attacked by multiple zombies outside and barricades the mansion while locking his family inside and spiraling further into paranoia. Joshua eventually finds Diego's map and confronts Francis over dinner, leading to Iris finally admitting that she wants to leave him and Francis acknowledging that Joshua is not his son. Francis produces the map but burns it in front of Iris, who storms off. Later that night, a wounded soldier named Corcuera seeks shelter at the mansion and confirms that there are now less zombies outside. He adds that he was guided to the mansion by Diego, who was killed by the zombies. The next day, Joshua, fed up with his father's actions, leaves the mansion. Upon discovering this, Francis goes berserk, kills the soldier with a hammer, and locks Iris and Lucas in the basement. That night, Lucas feigns getting sick in order to gain Francis' attention. Iris then stabs Francis and locks him in the basement while taking Lucas for their escape. Francis tries to follow but becomes immobilized by flashbacks of his father locking him up. As Iris and Lucas open the main door, they are chased back inside by a reanimated Diego, who bites Lucas. Francis, hearing his family's screams, recovers his sanity and escapes the basement. Francis kills Diego but collapses into a stupor upon seeing Lucas being bitten, leaving Iris alone to amputate his infected limb. Francis then returns to the checkpoint to retrieve their van, but is shot by a nervous Joshua, who mistakes Francis for a zombie due to the latter's stuttering and bloodied appearance. As Joshua begs for forgiveness, Francis acknowledges him as his son and dies, leaving Joshua to drive the van and rescue his mother and brother. Cast Sid Lucero as Francis, Beauty Gonzalez as Iris, Marco Masa as Joshua, Aiden Tyler Patdu as Lucas, Joel Torre as Arturo, James Blanco as Diego, Enchong Di as Corquera, Bing Pimentel as Francis's mother. Production. Carlo Ledesma cited family dramas and post-apocalyptic films such as The Day After and the Mad Max franchise as his inspiration for the film. Beauty Gonzalez and Sid Lucero were confirmed to be part of the film in a press statement on a streaming platform on October 11, 2023. While Outside overtly tackles a zombie apocalypse, the production theme intended to incorporate mental health as a theme. Among these is generational trauma. Principal photography was held in La Carlota and Cabancalan, Negros Occidental, the home province of Ledesma, Gonzalez, and Lucero. A Filipino-style mansion and a sugarcane farm were specific shooting locations. The film is 142 minutes long and was billeted by Netflix as its first original zombie film set in the Philippines. Filming lasted around a month and was hampered by weather conditions. The zombies were portrayed by residents of the province in makeup. The zombies are capable of speech, with the director intentionally not wanting them to be portrayed as mindless monsters. Release. The film was initially set to release worldwide in Netflix originally on October 11, 2024, but was moved to October 17, 2024. Reception. Film critic Fred Hawson gave the film a 7 out of 10 rating and praised the film's cinematography and Lucero and Gonzalez's acting, while criticizing parts of the dialogue for being dragging. Outside, now on Netflix, poses the question, what's worse, the zombie apocalypse or mental illness? I'm not sure it has an answer for that, nor is there necessarily one to be had. But this Filipino twist on the traditional undead takeover formula sure ponders it over the course of 142 minutes. Carlo Ledesma, who contributed a short to Hulu's scary season anthology series Bite Size Halloween, writes and directs this psycho-horror hybrid about a dysfunctional family that's trying to survive zombie attacks and each other, and the results left me scratching my head. The gist. We open on an old wedding video from the before times when happiness was a thing and undead people biting not yet dead people and turning them into undead people wasn't a thing. Then cut to a battered and filthy car covered in muddy, bloody handprints, its front bumper askew and flapping. Inside are Francis, Sid Lucero, and Iris, Beauty Gonzalez, and their sons, teenage Josh, Marco Masa, and young Luke, Aiden Tyler Patdu. The tone is somber, quiet. I mean, you can't expect them to be playing the license plate game, because having fun in this setting just ain't happening, but the silence hangs in the air, all but suffocating this family. They reach their destination, a big isolated farmhouse. Francis grabs a tire iron and takes his sweet, sweet time making sure the place is safe. He follows the buzz of flies to a bedroom where an old man with a bite on his arm has apparently taken his own life. Francis pries the pistol from his hand and heads down to the kitchen, where he finds an old woman zombie hissing at him. Her eyes are oil black, her skin pallid and ruddy with sores. "Mom?" he asks, and then he has to do the deed. Pow, and after that he digs the grave. The man in the bed goes in too. That was his father. Meanwhile, Iris seems profoundly unhappy. Is it the death of the world? Goes without saying, I think. Or is something else piled on top of that? It soon becomes clear that the honeymoon is over for her and Francis. It's vague, but I think she cheated with Francis's brother, and he was a deadbeat who owed a lot of people money. This is their chance to start over, he insists. Debt doesn't follow a fella into the post-society world, so who says the apocalypse is good for nothing? But it doesn't solve the problem of deep-seated marital resentment. That follows people all the way to the afterlife, I bet. So there's tension in the air as the fam roams the grounds, cleaning up, tending to some chickens, finding a dead body in a noose in the shed that Francis lets fall on top of Josh, traumatizing him, Father of the Year candidate right there. But you know what they say about the sins of the father, and that applies here because in a dingy basement room next to an old generator is where Francis's father apparently used to lock him up and beat him. And yet, when Iris suggests they move on in hopes of finding a rumored military base nearby and to get Francis away from the site of his youthful trauma, he insists they stay. You get it, but you also don't get it. It's a fine place for now, but it's not forever. Francis seems to disagree with that sentiment, though. Strongly. What movies will it remind you of? Outside nods toward iconic zombie films Night of the Living Dead and 28 Days Later, but it eventually becomes The Shining, but with zombies. Performance worth watching. Gonzalez finds considerable complexity within Iris, finding earnest truth in a character who's unwilling to pretend everything's okay with her marriage or her husband's mental state, even for the sake of her children. Memorable dialogue, Francis, in reference to how he stood by watching while Josh was traumatized by a corpse. He saw a dead body. He needs to get used to it. Sex and Skin, a brief, non-nude kitchen shtup sequence. Our take. 2 hours and 22 minutes is a lot of time to spend in the company of a lousy, irreparable marriage occasionally besieged by undead shamblers. Too much time. Let it be known, especially to goremongers, that Outside is more about surviving domestic strife than surviving hordes of zombies. Sure, it spikes here and there with some disgust-apating splatter violence, but this one ain't about the kills, bro. It's about lousy parenting and the psycho things from childhood that never ever go away. And to be perfectly frank, the zombie stuff is rendered with more subtlety. Ledesma leavens the screenplay with some dreary subtext asserting that dodging and decapitating zombies is far from an adequate substitute for couples therapy. Bitterness and jealousy always claw their way to the surface, no matter how deep you try to bury them. The filmmaker indulges long-winded melodrama with the occasional virtuoso action sequence. Francis's fighting a small battalion of zombies on a narrow bridge plays out in one long, exhilarating take. But the former consists of the majority of narrative weight here. And after a while, after Francis's screws get a little too loose for comfort, the film goes full hysterical, testing our endurance for over-exaggerated portrayals of insanity. I will say Outside is daring enough to explore the withered and ragged ends of its bleak story, which shows admirable ambition. But I can't say it's much fun either. Outside, 2024, the latest Filipino offering on Netflix, is a dense psychological drama set in the quick-fire world of the zombie apocalypse. It traverses the familiar grim reality of an apocalypse with a moderate dose of zombie-related dread and wanton violence. What writer-director Carlo Ledesma explores more in his film is the horror of childhood trauma, the festering of which creates a cycle of violence that is more terrible than any of the undead's actions. The price for such an attempt is the wrath of the fans of zombie films. Outside is bereft of pulsating zombie-killing actions that one is accustomed to in such films. Instead, it examines the frailties of human emotions and the ugliness of the very much alive. The film starts with Francis's, Sid Lucero, and Iris's Beauty Gonzalez wedding video, earmarking the relationship to be the key subject in the story. Fast forward a few years, and the Philippines is punched with a devastatingly grotesque viral outbreak. Like most zombie films, the infection spreads via the usual mode of getting bitten. Francis and Iris are weary and grizzled. They, along with their 2 sons, Josh, Marco Masa, and Lucas, Aiden, Tyler, Patdu, travel through the beautiful countryside in a severely dented van. All signs point that the family has gone through turmoil. Upon Francis's insistence, the family takes shelter in his parents' farmhouse. Francis finds his father has taken the ultimate measure to avoid being a zombie. He shot himself in the head. Francis takes the gun and the watch from his father's corpse. The gun immediately proves to be handy, as Francis has to shoot his zombified mother in the face in the next turn of events. Once assured the house is free of danger, Francis insists on remaining there as he feels it is safer inside. As the story progresses, the past starts to unfold. Gradually, we realize why Outside is different from the trademark zombie films. The apocalyptic present of the story merely acts as a trigger, a scene upon which the horror, influenced by the past, takes center stage. Yes, the central characters often have to evade a horde of zombies, have to scour the field for food, and have to ration what they have. However, the bigger challenge for survival for them is themselves, primarily the patriarch, Francis. This is where Ledesma's story veers toward the Shining territory. The house, where Francis spent his childhood, starts to change him. A limited but cleverly infused amount of flashbacks tell that Francis was abused by his father in that very same house. The scars of that can still be found as Francis often succumbs to night terrors. With each passing day, Francis starts to take after his father. The wheel of abuse from the dominant position of the patriarch begins to roll and starts to gather momentum as Francis's mental state starts to deteriorate. Outside is also a tableau of the aftermath of a marriage's deterioration. With each passing moment between them, Francis and Iris show it is not the apocalypse that has taken a toll on their relationship. It is they themselves. Both of them have made mistakes by their own admission. Mistakes, despite efforts from both of them, continue to be irremediable. Sid Lucero's Francis is a reluctant and refrained homage to Jack Torrance. Lucero is deft at being vulnerable and tormenting. Francis' constant efforts to keep his family chained to him are well explored by Lucero's portrayal. Beauty Gonzalez effuses the depression that Iris is going through. Gonzalez paints both the weariness of the perpetually aloof Iris and the absolute breakdown of the desperate-to-survive Iris with equal success. Despite not truly embracing the genre tropes, Outside is proficient when it comes to handling its zombies. Grotesquely dolled up, the zombies in this film also carry a creepily eccentric tic. They constantly say their last living words. Francis's mother's decapitated undead body attacking him while saying sorry was a terrific start. The cinematography of Shin Feng Chung has to be lauded too. Whether it is drone shots of the lush landscape ravaged by the zombies, or the characters' isolated shots framed by the architecture of the menacing farmhouse, Chung's camera makes Outside a visual delight. There is a particular tracking shot where Francis kills and evades a pack of zombies over the bridge, which puts the cherry on top. It leaves the viewers wanting for more such actions. Outside is not the usual affair one might expect from a zombie-centric film. But if you are in the mood for something different this Halloween season, it could be just what you need. Outside is a 2024 Filipino psychological horror thriller, directed by Kyle Mendoza, that delves into the terrifying world of a family trapped both physically and emotionally in the confines of their home during a zombie apocalypse. More than just a story of survival against the undead, the movie is an exploration of generational trauma, domestic abuse, and control dynamics within a family. Starring Sid Lucero as the abusive patriarch Francis Abel and Beauty Gonzalez as his wife Iris, the film navigates the psychological torment that stems from Francis's past, his deteriorating mental state, and the devastating impact it has on his family. The supporting cast includes Chong-di as Corcuera, a soldier who offers hope for escape, and child actors who deliver strong performances as Francis and Iris's 3 children. Outside 2024 has a strange, airy atmosphere and an ending that might confuse viewers. In the following article, I will take a look at the film in detail. Please be aware of spoilers. Outside 2024 Netflix plot summary and movie synopsis. The movie opens with the Abel family, Francis, Iris, and their children, Josh, Lucas, and Diego, hunkered down in Francis's childhood home, a decaying structure that becomes the stage for both external and internal horrors. The world outside is overrun by zombies, but the most oppressive danger lurks inside the house, where Francis's increasingly erratic and abusive behavior is the true threat to his family's safety. Having inherited a legacy of trauma from his father, Francis uses fear to control his wife and children, much like he was once controlled by his own father. His manipulation extends beyond his words, as he repeatedly warns his family that stepping outside the house will result in their certain death. From the outset, Francis positions himself as the family's only protector, though his actions reveal a darker motivation rooted in control. The family's youngest child, Lucas, who idolizes soldiers and carries a toy soldier with him at all times, becomes an unwitting pawn in Francis's psychological manipulation. Francis exploits Lucas's admiration of military figures to reinforce his authority, insisting that the family must follow his every command if they wish to survive. Meanwhile, Iris struggles to shield her children from her husband's increasingly violent outbursts, while harboring doubts about the true nature of the outside world. The tension within the household intensifies when a soldier named Corcuera Chong-di arrives, challenging Francis' version of reality. Corcuera, who has survived the apocalypse outside, insists that there are safe zones where people are rebuilding society. His appearance introduces the possibility that Francis has been lying about the danger outside to maintain control over his family. When Corcuera offers them an opportunity to escape, Francis's fragile sense of authority comes out into play. In a fit of rage, Francis murders the soldier and assumes his uniform, presenting himself as the heroic figure his son Lucas has always admired. With Corcuera dead, Francis dons his uniform and attempts to continue the charade, but the psychological and emotional damage has already been done. His eldest son, Josh, who has been quietly resisting his father's authority, begins to see through Francis' facade. Tensions within the family rise to a boiling point as they are forced to confront the reality of Francis's abuse and the possibility that life outside the house might be safer than the nightmare they're living inside. Why does Francis become violent toward his family? At the core of Francis's violent behavior is the trauma he experienced as a child. The house they are trapped in is not just a physical structure, but a symbol of Francis's own past, specifically the abuse and isolation he suffered at the hands of his father. Much of the film's emotional weight comes from the exploration of how Francis' unresolved trauma manifests in his behavior toward his own family. In his mind, controlling his wife and children is a way of preventing the same loss of control he experienced as a child, but in reality, it further extended the cycle of abuse. Francis's violent tendencies emerge as his fear of losing control grows. He views any challenge to his authority as a threat to his survival, both as a father and as a man. This explains why he reacts so violently to Corcuera's arrival, seeing the soldier not just as a potential savior, but as someone who might expose his lies and strip away his power over his family. His psychological breakdown is compounded by his refusal to confront his own past, as evidenced by his insistence on keeping his family inside the house, which, much like his mind, is a prison filled with ghosts of past abuse. Outside, 2024 Netflix movie ending explained. Why does Francis decide to help his family in the end? A critical turning point occurs near the ending of Outside, 2024, when zombified Diego, Francis's son, attacks the family. Despite his abusive behavior throughout the movie, Francis ultimately chooses to protect his family from the undead, showing a brief moment of clarity and humanity. This act can be interpreted as his way of seeking redemption, though it comes too late to erase the pain he has caused. His sudden change of heart is driven by the realization that his need for control has not protected his family but endangered them. By stepping in to save them, Francis attempts to fulfill his role as a protector, though his earlier actions leave the family broken and traumatized. What is the significance of the basement in Francis's trauma? The house's basement plays a pivotal role in Francis's psychological arc. This dark, confined space was where his own father confined and abused him as a child, symbolizing the root of his trauma. When the family is forced into the basement during the film's climax, the setting takes on new meaning. It becomes the place where Francis must confront his past and where his transformation begins. Trapped with his family in the very location that once served as his personal hell, Francis is forced to face the cyclical nature of his abuse. The basement, once a place of torment, now becomes the stage for his attempt at reconciliation with his family, though it is tainted by the violent legacy he has carried forward. What does the watch symbolize in the ending? One of the film's most significant symbols is the watch that Francis wears, a relic passed down from his father. The watch represents time, control, and the generational cycle of abuse that Francis cannot escape. Throughout the movie, it is a constant reminder of his father's domination over him, and by wearing it, Francis subconsciously adopts the same role. In the final moments of the film, after Francis dies, Josh, the eldest son, leaves the watch behind as they leave the house. This act symbolizes Josh's rejection of the legacy of abuse, offering a glimmer of hope that the cycle of trauma can be broken. What does Iris's song mean? The film's emotional conclusion is marked by Iris singing their wedding song while holding Francis in her arms after he dies. This moment is a reflection of Iris's complex emotions. Despite the horrors Francis inflicted upon her and their children, there is still a part of her that mourns the man she married. The song represents the love that once existed between them, a love that has been destroyed by Francis's abusive behavior. As she sings, Iris seems to reconcile the duality of her grief, mourning both the loss of her husband and the man he could have been, while recognizing that her survival and that of her children depends on breaking free from the trauma that has haunted them. Netflix's new zombie horror movie has become a global streaming hit. Netflix has been producing original movies since the mid-2010s. Although they take on a variety of genres, they began making horror projects about a year in, with 2016's I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. Their roster has significantly expanded since then to include movies such as The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Perfection, Apostle, and The Cloverfield Paradox, the Stephen King adaptations Gerald's Game, Mr. Harrigan's Phone, and In the Tall Grass, as well as the Fear Street trilogy and the Babysitter and Bird Box franchises. This moment, coming after a heated argument between Iris and her husband Francis, reflects the growing strain in their marriage. Outside opens dramatically, with Francis, Sid Lucero, and his family being the few survivors of a zombie outbreak. He takes his wife and their sons, Joshua, Marco Masa, and Lucas, to his family's farmhouse for safety. There, Francis finds his father dead by suicide and is forced to kill his mother, who has become a zombie. His decision to keep his abusive father's gun signals the dark turn the story will take. Francis is the central figure in this psychological horror, and Ledesma's writing excels in portraying his transformation from an anxious family man into a tyrant. His dreams, filled with memories of being locked in the farmhouse basement as a child, begin to blend into his waking life, feeding his insecurity. He burns the family's escape map, sabotages their van, and insists that the farmhouse is their only safe haven. At one point, he even kills a soldier for food, marking a significant shift in his character. Iris's perspective, shared in the film's pre-climax, suggests that her husband is not inherently evil, but a man desperate for love and validation. This is supported by earlier scenes, where he views the farmhouse not as protection from zombies, but as a place to keep his wife from leaving him. His growing mistrust and fragile ego only worsen by the discovery of her past infidelity. Some may argue that it's important to present both sides of a character driven to turn violent. This can, however, leave the audience uncertain whether to sympathize or condemn them. Ledesma walks this fine line, but eventually makes Francis's irredeemability clear, using visual cues like his increasing physical distance from his family at the dining table. As the film progresses, though, the zombie outbreak, which initially seems crucial, becomes a subplot. The family's internal struggles take precedence, making the zombie element feel underdeveloped. There's no clear explanation for the outbreak, and the threat feels diminished when the zombies are described as weakening over time. At its core, Outside questions whether physical safety can truly protect against deeper emotional instability. A subliminal shot of a "home is where the heart is" keychain reinforces the idea that no external threat compares to the damage caused by internal discord. I come alive in the fall time, or whatever The Weeknd said. Autumn is in its prime, and the fresh gust of content that's new on Netflix November 2024 is swirling up some leaves. This month, Netflix welcomes the arrival of so many new original movies and TV shows and re-embraces old favorites, making their long-awaited returns. Like the first season of Love is Blind Argentina, almost immediately after Love is Blind USA wrapped up its 7th installment with a chaotic reunion. There's the first 6 Fast and Furious films in the seemingly never-ending franchise. Related, what's leaving Netflix November 2024? Movie and show removals. There's a handful of new holiday films coming just in time for you to gather around the fireplace with your fam, like Meet Me Next Christmas, starring Christina Milian, Hot Frosty, starring Mean Girls star Lacey Chabert, The Merry Gentleman, starring Chad Michael Murray, and Our Little Secret, starring Lindsay Lohan, PLL star Ian Harding, and Broadway legend Kristen Chenoweth. There's highly anticipated new seasons of your favorite series, like Arcane Season 2 Act I, Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2, Sprint Season 2, and Rhythm Plus Flow Season 2. There's Oscar-worthy films like Emilia Perez, starring Selena Gomez, and The Piano Lesson. Read more Netflix's Arcane Season 2, release date, soundtrack, clips, and everything you need to know. But perhaps the show with the biggest comeback is Outer Banks, with Part 2 of the intensifying Season 4 arriving on November 7th. According to showrunners Shannon Burke and Josh and Jonas Pate, the second half of Season 4 is going to be a winding and rocky road. Definitely the biggest surprises we've ever done are this season, Jonas said while speaking to Entertainment Weekly last month. It's our most powerful season yet, Josh agreed. The stakes are getting higher. Below, check out a complete list of everything new on Netflix in November 2024. Nicholas Hoult plays a guilty man tapped to judge someone else for his own mistake in Eastwood's unlikely yet engaging courtroom drama. If you think jury duty's a drag, consider how much worse sitting in judgment could be if, on the first day of the trial, you discovered that the defendant's been accused of a terrible crime for which you were in fact responsible. That's the hook of Clint Eastwood's latest, and Some Fear Last, feature, Juror Number 2, a slightly preposterous but thoroughly engaging extension of the 94-year-old filmmaker's career-long fascination with guilt, justice, and the limitations of the law. In movies where Eastwood acts, guns go a long way to resolve problems the system can't. But the director does not appear in Juror Number 2, a moral-minded courtroom drama in which Nicholas Hoult plays the lone holdout in a murder trial. The film may open on a note of idealism, but it quickly turns cynical as Holt's character, perfect husband and upstanding citizen Justin Kemp, honors his jury summons, even though he'd prefer to remain home with his pregnant wife, ally Zoe Deutsch. Justin asks to be excused but is selected anyway, rounding out a group of a dozen folks who'd rather be doing anything other than their civic duty. The whole process is wasting our time, and my kids need me, complain Justin's fellow jurors, whereas he has an entirely different set of reasons for feeling uncomfortable. As soon as prosecuting attorney Faith Kilbrew, Toni Collette, describes the murder, a clear-cut case of domestic violence, in her opinion, Justin realizes that he was there at the roadside bar on the night in question. More troubling still, according to Justin's flashbacks, it seems clear that the deer he hit on the way home wasn't a deer at all, but the victim, Kendall Carter, Francesca Eastwood. What are the odds? Best not to question. You're either on board with the premise or you're not in a film that takes the resulting predicament seriously. inviting audiences to ponder what they'd do in Justin's shoes. To complicate matters, the expectant father is a recovering alcoholic, and his sponsor, Kiefer Sutherland, who also happens to be a lawyer, advises him that if he were to come forward, no one would believe he was sober on the fateful night. It's no coincidence the film is set in Georgia, where first-degree vehicular homicide is treated as a felony. The location gives Colette, and no one else in the cast, a chance to do a thick Southern accent, as her character alternates between court and the campaign trail. Faith is running for district attorney on a tough-on-domestic abuse platform, and this case could push her to victory, which makes the truth as inconvenient for her as it is for Justin. On the opposite side, Chris Messina plays the desperate-sounding public defender. Once the trial wraps and deliberations begin, Eastwood seems to be counting on our having seen 12 Angry Men, dangling the possibility that Justin could sway the rest of the jury to acquit, or else nudge them toward a guilty verdict, letting Kendall's boyfriend James Scythe, Gabriel Basso, take the fall. But Jonathan Abrams' script has a few twists up its sleeve, which seem to fit Eastwood's more skeptical view of the legal process. Early on, Justin gives a short Frank Capra-worthy speech about how the defendant deserves the benefit of the doubt, but it's clear that's his conscience talking. 10 of the jurors are ready to convict, while Justin finds an ally in Harold, J.K. Simmons, a former police detective whose gut tells him the accused is innocent. The trouble with swaying the others, Justin realizes, is that they're operating on prejudices, which amounts to a pretty damning critique of the peer system by which juries operate. Like both the police and the prosecutor, these fictional civilians are susceptible to bias, considering only the evidence that supports their hastily reached conclusions. Of course, everything could be resolved quite quickly if Justin came clean. Here I was reminded of a little seen but utterly remarkable silent film from director John M. Stahl called The Woman Under Oath, which challenges the sexist notion that women might be too emotional or irrational to serve on juries. The progressive drama was released in 1919, nearly 2 decades before New York granted the responsibility to women. In the film, 11 men are ready to convict, while the state's first female juror insists the defendant is innocent, and she should know. In the end, she reveals that she was the killer, justifying her actions to the jury, who exonerate the suspect while keeping her secret. That film bears mentioning for 2 reasons. First, The Woman Under Oath deserves to be rediscovered, and second, there's nothing like putting the culprit on the jury to upend the process. In another filmmaker's hands, the situation might play as melodrama, but Eastwood's earnest, unfussy style makes it feel less far-fetched, centering our attention on Justin's dilemma. Editor Joel Cox and his son David keep cutting back to close-ups of Justin's face, as Holt telegraphs his turmoil through shifty eyes and nervous glances, emotions he'd surely keep hidden in real life. He's not the only character facing a crisis of conscience here. Faith eventually starts to question her case, which could jeopardize her political ambitions, while giving Colette a chance to redeem a character who earlier read as a self-righteous obstacle to justice and now seems like its most Eastwood-worthy champion. After focusing on Justin's guilt for most of the film, Abrams' script plays a trick toward the end, skipping over the jury's final vote so as to surprise us when the verdict is read in court. An effective cheat, dramatically speaking, that leaves Justin's most important decision off-screen. While there's much to chew on throughout, the film's ambiguous last few scenes trust us to be the judge. As always, Eastwood respects our intelligence. And yet, Juror Number 2 registers as something of an anomaly in his oeuvre. It ranks among his quietest films, forgoing spectacle in favor of self-reflection. One could argue the whole system is on trial, and yet the only angry man here is Eastwood, not the jurors, as Dirty Harry goes out not with a bang, but an ambivalent whisper. Setting up your backyard for winter? Thinking about hosting outdoor parties or gatherings once the weather improves? Advertisement. Ads by take outdoor entertainment up a notch by investing in a projector screen. It gives you the joy of watching a thrilling film on the big screen, but from the comfort of home while you're surrounded by friends and family. Such screens are specially constructed to handle shifting light and unpredictable weather. With a bright white, smooth, and taut surface, These backdrops are essential for high-quality imagery. While some have a quick setup and dismantling process and offer a portable solution for camping trips, others are more permanent. The best measure at least 100 inches to accommodate the most popular format of modern movies and TV shows. We scoured Amazon for the best outdoor projector screens that you can use this winter, based on user reviews and top ratings. Pick yours with Prime membership and get ready for outdoor movie nights. Cons. Screen tends to wrinkle when stored, offering professional-grade clarity and an easy setup process. Elite Screen's Yardmaster Plus is compatible with standard, short-throw, and ultra-high definition UHD or HD projectors. Its 120-inch screen can accommodate 16:9 aspect ratio and supports 4K Ultra HD and active 3D image projection. It's big enough for entire groups to watch a film with no issues, although you'll need a large area to comfortably set up this movie screen. Reviewers say the screen remains stable, thanks to the included ground stakes, even when a breeze kicks up. The legs are height adjustable, which is quite useful. Everything fits in a duffel bag for easy portability. However, some users noted that the screen tends to develop wrinkles when stored in the bag. Bonus, buy with 0% installments and pay $156.25 for 12 months with select banks. White material is slightly reflective in the daytime. For effortless assembly, Vamvo's projector screen is the way to go. This affordable projector screen is ideal to take along on road trips or overnight camping trips, since it can be set up by using collapsible tripods and elastic cords. Lightweight, easy to assemble and disassemble, and able to fit into a small carrying case, Vamvo's screen can be brought along anywhere. The 100-inch screen supports 16:9 aspect ratio and has a 160-degree wide viewing angle. While it's made with wrinkle-resistant polyester fabric, if you do detect any creases, you can easily iron them out. Reviewers say the picture quality here is excellent, just like at the movies, according to one user. However, some comment that it's best used in the evenings since the white material is a bit reflective in the daytime, which can affect image quality, cannot be moved around. Doesn't work with short-throw projectors. If you've picked out a permanent place to mount a projector screen, opt for a pull-down model. Elite Screen's Manual B comes in various sizes and aspect ratios and has a sturdy steel housing case. Once you've installed it, organizing a viewing session is just a matter of pulling the screen down. It's simple and hassle-free. The 120-inch screen rolls down and retracts smoothly. There's a 2-inch interval auto-lock mechanism in place as well to allow for various height settings. The black-backed screen material ensures optimal light penetration, so images are crisp with bright colors and deep blacks. The textured matte screen is weather-resistant, and its bottom is weighted, so it hangs straight, even on breezy evenings. Its housing keeps it dust-free when you're done watching your movie. Do note, however, that the screen is not compatible with certain types of movie projectors, like short-throw and ultra-short-throw models. Looking to bring the magic of movies into your home or take it outdoors for a fun movie night under the stars? Portable projectors are the best way to watch your favorite TV shows, movies, and video games on a big screen without a traditional TV setup. With these portable projectors, you can set up a backyard theater or project bright, large images anywhere. The best portable projectors of 2024 will have enhanced picture quality, simple wireless connections, and extra features like Bluetooth support and built-in speakers. Since many are lightweight, they are convenient for cozy home setups or outdoor adventures. With so many options, finding the right one can help transform any space into your cinema. A portable projector serves multiple purposes and can be used for entertainment at home or during travels. It allows you to display images, movies, or slideshows on a large surface or screen. Its portable design offers a large screen viewing experience, making it perfect for gaming, watching movies, and sharing photos with friends. Transporting to other rooms or even outside for stargazing movie evenings is simple. Portable projectors are also excellent for business and education because they can display slideshows, presentations, or videos quickly during meetings or classes. Principal advantages consist of compact and portable design for easy use anywhere, ideal for home cinema, gaming, and outdoor movie nights. Quick setup for business presentations and educational use. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity for seamless screen sharing from phones and laptops. Is a projector worth buying? Whether or not you should buy a projector will depend on your unique needs and preferences. With a projector, you can turn any indoor or outdoor area into your own home theater, which is perfect for hosting guests, playing video games, or watching movies. You can view immersive content on a much bigger screen than a regular TV, thanks to the HD or 4K resolution options many projectors offer. Movie nights at a friend's house or outside are now possible because portable projectors are becoming widely available. The Smart Mini Projector with Android 11 delivers a cinematic experience with a 200-screen and easy access to streaming content. Its built-in dual-band Wi-Fi 6 ensures smooth streaming and video conferencing with reduced lag. With 4K support and auto trapezoid correction, the projector provides clear, sharp images, making setup quick and simple. Thanks to the compact light design and Bluetooth 5.2 connectivity, you can easily watch movies or attend presentations without needing extra cables anywhere. Its long life, up to 50,000 hours, results from its construction. Outside, the first zombie film by Netflix Philippines is exactly how it is advertised, given that it presents values and situations that only Filipinos can understand. In a film dialogue following the movie's advanced screening at the Grand Hyatt Manila on Wednesday, director Carlo Ledesma said that, ultimately, it's truly a Filipino film and highlighted several factors. Firstly, the film was shot in Ledesma's home province of Negros Occidental. Scenes were shot in a Filipino-style mansion, as well as sugarcane fields on a farm. "You can't shoot that anywhere else in the world," Direct Carlo said. Secondly, Ledesma wanted to showcase the Filipino family, but not in its perfect form as most media tend to present. "I think that the backstory that Sid Lucero's character goes through is something that happens to a lot Filipinos," Ledesma said. "I think generational trauma is something that doesn't get talked about often, and I think maybe should be talked about," he added. Sid Lucero portrays the patriarch Francis, who projects his past and traumas onto the rest of his family, wife Iris, Beauty Gonzalez, and sons Joshua, Marco Masa, and Lucas, Aiden Tyler Patdu. X. Need a wellness break? Sign up for the Boost. Stay up to date with the latest health and wellness reads. Your email, sign up. Ledesma added that Filipinos would know somebody who had suffered generational trauma from their family members, who may have also been abused before. He added that he wanted to shed light on Filipino generational trauma, along with living in a patriarchal society. And one of the things I really want to change is that, I want people to talk about it, talk about their feelings, and accepting that and saying, hold on, I don't have to pass whatever abuse I had from this particular parent. I don't need to bring that on to my child, Ledesma said. Meanwhile, the zombies in Outside are also unlike those portrayed in other media, as they speak and have more of a story behind each of them. There had been films where we see zombies talk, but I wanted to put a bit more backstory into all the zombies that I had, in the sense that whatever their last memory was before they were bitten is the last words that they say as humans, Ledesma said. More than showing their last moments of consciousness, Ledesma wanted to highlight that the zombies still have forms of humanity. I didn't want them just to be mindless monsters. I wanted everyone in this film to still have emotions to still process. Outside premiered on Netflix worldwide on October 17th. The film follows the family of Francis, Iris, Joshua, and Lucas as they travel to a secluded mansion to be safe from a zombie outbreak. In the psychological thriller, the family also learns that they must deal with scarier monsters, their pasts. Ledesma is best known for directing the horror films Sunod and The Tunnel. He was also one of the writers of the Filipino animated live-action film Saving Sally. JCB GMA Integrated News. As the nights get longer and spooky season creeps in, Netflix is gearing up to release Outside, a new psychological thriller with a zombie twist. If you've been enjoying the recent wave of horror films, then this one, starring Sid Lucero and Beauty Gonzalez, is definitely one to add to your list. It's not your typical zombie flick, too. There's a lot more going on beneath the surface. In Outside, Lucero plays Francis, a father trying to protect his family from a zombie outbreak by fleeing to his old farmhouse in the countryside. His wife Iris Gonzalez and their two sons join him, hoping they've finally found safety. But as the trailer hints, the real terror might not be the undead outside. It could be lurking inside their own home, or even inside Francis's mind. The film, directed by Carlo Ledesma, The Tunnel, Sunod, doesn't just deliver on the zombie action. It's also a psychological deep dive into a man's unraveling sanity, made all the more intense by the isolated farmhouse setting. Ledesma has shared that Outside was inspired by his own feelings of isolation during the pandemic, and you can feel that tension throughout the trailer. It's eerie, emotional, and bound to get under your skin. With the tagline, "You can't keep out what's already inside," the film sets the stage for a tense, slow-burning thriller. Fans of psychological horror and survival stories will have plenty to look forward to when Outside drops on Netflix on October 17, just in time for Halloween scares. The zombie genre has always been a favorite of mine, so I was excited to dive into this film. Unfortunately, it turned out to be one of the most disappointing zombie movies I've seen in a long time. Despite a simple premise that could have worked with better execution, the movie fails to deliver on multiple fronts, leaving viewers with a sense of incompleteness and frustration. The story revolves around Francis and Iris, a couple struggling to keep their family together amidst growing tension. Francis recently discovered that his son Joshua isn't biologically his, which creates a deep rift between them. The couple has another son, Lucas, but the strain of this revelation causes Francis to detach from Joshua emotionally. Compounding this, Francis had a difficult childhood, which seems to impair his ability to make rational decisions in the face of adversity. The family flees the city in their rusty wan and runs to the rural part to escape zombies. Within the initial moments, Francis kills his mom after she becomes a zombie and attacks him. Much of the movie centers on the increasingly fraught relationship between Francis and Iris. Francis becomes suspicious that Iris is having an affair with Diego, and his paranoia only deepens as the situation outside the house worsens. Zombies are wreaking havoc in the world beyond, but the real threat seems to come from within their fractured family unit. Francis's descent into paranoia reaches a critical point when he mistakenly kills a soldier who wasn't even infected, driven by his inability to distinguish between real danger and his internal fears. Francis, the central character, dominates the narrative as his paranoia and distrust of Iris become the driving force of the story. The film dedicates so much time to his psychological unraveling that the external threat of the zombies is almost forgotten, making the apocalypse feel more like a minor inconvenience rather than a life-or-death situation. The focus on the marital strife between Francis and Iris, while potentially compelling in another context, feels misplaced here. The pacing is another major issue. Outside drags unnecessarily, stretching what could have been a tight, tense plot into a sluggish narrative that loses momentum halfway through. The early promise of a tense, apocalyptic thriller quickly dissolves into repetitive arguments and drawn-out scenes that add little to the story. As a result, the film loses its sense of urgency, and the zombie threat feels almost irrelevant. Ultimately, Outside fails to strike a balance between its family drama elements and the zombie genre. For zombie fans, this film might be a disappointment, as it doesn't deliver the thrills or scares that come with the territory. Instead, it's a slow-burn character study that never fully commits to its apocalyptic premise. When bloody zombies, creepily mouthing the words their human selves once said, gather outside your home, how far are you willing to go to protect your loved ones? Directed by Carlo Ledesma, The Tunnel, the zombie horror film Outside follows a family of 4 in the Philippines as they attempt to survive an undead outbreak that's plaguing the country. But the longer they stay holed up in an abandoned house, the threats start coming from inside instead of out. The first ever Filipino zombie film, starring Sid Lucero, Beauty Gonzalez, and Masa, was co-written by Ledesma and Anton Santamaria, The Tunnel. More than anything, Outside is a story about family, Ledesma told Netflix about the film. It explores how a family could fall apart, and it played out my worst fears as a father. What happens in Outside? A zombie pandemic forces Francis Lucero, his wife Iris Gonzalez, and their 2 children Joshua Masa and Lucas Patdu to move to the country in search of safety. They relocate to a decrepit house that dredges up traumatizing memories for Francis. This was his family's homestead, where he faced unspeakable horrors as a child. Now Francis is determined to keep his wife and son safe no matter the cost. But as time goes on, Francis's complicated relationship with Iris becomes more strained, and his paranoid behavior threatens to put his family in grave danger. Is Outside based on a book? No, it's an original screenplay based on a story by director Ledesma. Where does Outside take place? The film takes place in an unnamed deserted countryside in the Philippines, where the film was also shot. The undead genre has already been bludgeoned to death by Hollywood executives. Once a subset of horror that struck fear and disgust into audiences, its tropes have now become so recognizable and familiar that there's no room left for surprises. To these industry bigwigs and those who only consume Western media, parroting the usual cynical sentiments about horror cinema, it's dead and buried. Well, that may be true, but only on the Hollywood side of things. The situation in the East paints a different picture. Recent outings of mindless flesh-eaters in East Asia, such as the series Kingdom and All of Us Are Dead, movies such as Yeon Sang-ho's Train to Busan, and Rob Jabaz's The Sadness, have captivated audiences around the world and introduced a uniquely Asian flavor to these stories. In the Philippines, however, while there are mildly entertaining entries of varying quality, such as Mikhail Red's Block Z, Joey de Guzman's Day Zero, and his bloody shake, rattle, and roll segment Rage, the genre has yet to gain a real foothold in our cinematic landscape. As much as I want the masterful and gut-wrenchingly tragic indie Visayan horror feature, Di Ingon Nato, to be the movie that everyone thinks of when discussing the best Filipino zombie horror film of all time, the institutionalized distribution, Western hegemony in cinema encouraged by shopping malls, and the commodification of art by business executives make it almost impossible for the film to be recognized outside of small cinephile circles. Zombie films, especially good ones, are almost non-existent in the Philippines, as we haven't truly claimed the genre as our own or imprinted our own identity onto it. This is why it's baffling to me that anyone would feel the need to carve a fresh take out of it when we've barely even mastered its basics. Yet Carlo Ledesma's Outside, marketed as Netflix Philippines' first local zombie film, is certainly ready to make that attempt. The film drops you right in the middle of an undead apocalypse as seen through the eyes of the Abel family, consisting of the patriarch Francis, Sid Lucero, the matriarch Iris, Beauty Gonzalez, the eldest son Josh, Marco Masa, and the youngest, Lucas, Aiden Patdu. Together, they seek refuge from the living dead in Francis's ancestral childhood home, where they are forced to contend with cabin fever and the painful secrets of the past that threaten to rock their relationships with each other. Iris comforts Lucas. Still from Netflix. Technically, Outside is still a zombie film, as its backdrop is set in a world where the reanimated dead wander aimlessly in search of flesh. However, its story beats pivots more closely to a slow-burn psychological horror feature that examines generational trauma and how it passes like a virus from one generation to the next. It's very clear that the film aims to set itself apart from the typical zombie horror narrative and attempt to mine something deeper, not modeling itself after elevated horror films where the real monster lies within oneself. But in the process of elevating the genre, the film shoots itself in the foot. It becomes so absorbed in the psychological introspection of Francis and his family that it forgets the dead are literally roaming the earth. In Catholic scripture, that would signify Judgment Day and the end of the world, but apparently that's not a big deal to this pray-before-dinner family, as scene after scene shows them loitering outside the house as if they're not in danger of being mauled to death. By continually ignoring the ever-present threat of flesh-eating ghouls, the film robs itself of any potential tension from the apocalyptic angle. This begs the question, why are the undead even present when they are such a non-factor in the events that are unfolding? We eventually get an explanation for why the Walking Dead don't appear as often, but the characters only learn this near the final act. There's also an attempt to establish their threat through an action sequence, where the Abel family is attacked while trying to cross a bridge, which apparently was an integral part of the filmmaking process that took 3 separate days to film. The film is technically sound and better made than some of the mainstream local films released this year, but there's a certain polish to it that makes the mise-en-scène too obvious and artificial. Despite the effort, the sequence feels unnaturally stilted, as if the actors are waiting for cues or searching for their marks, draining the scene of any real urgency. This leaves the horrors of the undead to fade into the background instead of becoming a convincing driving force, making it difficult to feel any real stakes or pressure for survival. Zombies on the Prowl, still from Netflix. Annoyingly, the film is generating way more online discussion than it should. The general rhetoric from those who love it seems to be that those who don't like it are simply failing to grasp its true nature as a psychological thriller that makes way for some family drama. It just so happens to be set during a zombie apocalypse, and the reanimated flesh-eating corpses don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Yes, the genre has always served as a lens through which we explore human nature and how humanity reacts in the face of societal breakdown brought on by The Walking Dead. At its center are the humans and their very human problems. In George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, Romero subversively critiques race relations in 1960s America by featuring an African-American protagonist who, after surviving a hellish night of ghoul attacks, is unceremoniously gunned down by bloodthirsty rednecks. In 28 Days Later, we follow a group of people orphaned by a rage-filled apocalypse as they find a family among strangers and fight to protect it when it's threatened. In Return of the Living Dead and Di Ingannato, we witness entire communities being built up only to be ripped apart, literally before our eyes. But all of these noteworthy films within the genre retain the undead element and use it to amplify emotional stakes and drama, unlike Outside, which seems allergic to the vital balance between horror and human drama, diluting the very essence of what makes a story set in a zombie apocalypse compelling. When all of that is stripped away, what we're left with is an arid melodrama we've seen countless times before, about a family coming apart, and a tensionless psychological horror thriller designed like those A24 and Neon trauma-centered films that always end either on an ambiguous or cynical note, featuring a patriarch who terrorizes his family and projects his own problems onto them. So, it's more of the same, really, but a different kind of same that leaves it open to comparisons with cinema titans such as Mike DeLeon's Kisat Mata or Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Shockingly, the only difference with Outside is that it gives its abuser a half-baked redemption arc. Yikes. But at least the actors did their best to do it justice. Lucero carries the film and is fantastic, clearly passionate about bringing Ledesma's vision to life, even if it all comes off as more pathetic than unnerving, since his Francis is written as too much of a bondying haciendero who lacks the menace needed to instill fear without a weapon in hand, which ultimately drains the film of any real sense of peril. Beauty Gonzalez makes a notable attempt as well, and I would say she gives levity to the dreary material. However, having already played similar roles in Compon and In My Mother's Skin, I can't help but fear that her talent is being typecast into the role of the mother in horror films, silent and submissive, with little say in her husband's desires. As for the younger actors' performances, they lack some naturalness to really make a connection with the audience. But they're still young, they'll improve. Sid Lucero as Francis Still from Netflix. Outside tries to carve out its own path, but in doing so, it loses touch with what makes the zombie category resonate in the first place. Primal survival and raw human emotions in collision with a world of viscera and chaos. While I applaud its audacity for trying to do something different, it all comes at the cost of forgetting the basics that made the horror of its predecessors iconic and unforgettable, devolving into a film that's all gloss with no appetite for genuine emotional impact. It's a walking corpse, shambling without a pulse. As we continue to seek out our identity in this specific cinematic landscape, we can only hope that the next attempt will rise to the occasion and finally deliver the kind of unforgettable zombie film that resonates. One that, like The Living Dead, refuses to stay buried and won't fade into the endless wave of content that Netflix has to offer. But then again, you could just watch Di Ingannato for free on I Want TFC, and that'll all be taken care of. Outside is now playing on Netflix, directed by Carlo Ledesma, written by Carlo Ledesma starring Sidero, Beauty Gonzalez, Maros, Aiden, Tyler, Patdu. Production company Black Cat Pictures, distributed by Netflix. Release date October 17th, 2024. Running time 142 minutes. Country Philippines. Language Filipino. So guys, this is the review of Outside movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.